Looks like we have an intermittent operation issue this morning. A homeowner gave us a call, stated that over the last couple of days she's noticed her air conditioner is just not blowing out any cool air, not really cooling the home. It is blowing out air, it's just warmish air. Stated something's been kind of going on for the last month or so. It seems like the outdoor unit sporadically comes on and shuts back down and hasn't really been doing the greatest job, but she was just dealing with it. We have been having a lot of storms, so right off the bat her description makes me think possibly a capacitor is bad and it's allowing, say, the fan motor to start occasionally, somewhat work until it overheats and shuts down. However, over time, as the capacitor got worse, as the fan motor built up too much heat, it may have actually damaged it. The capacitor may have gotten worse. On the other hand, it could be something as simple as a clogged up drain line. As the auxiliary pan fills up, shuts down the unit, and enough of it drains back out or evaporates that it starts back up for a little while. Could be any number of things. We'll stop by, take a look, and see if we can get her cooling again. So we do have an old package unit. I can hear the blower motor running on that side, and our condenser fan is very hot to the touch. First off, we'll try to tap it and see if we get any kind of movement out of it. We do not, but it may just be shut down due to temperature. So let's take a look at the capacitor. We've got a dual capacitor here, but the fan is not actually hooked to it. We also see a slightly cooked plug there. Not entirely sure that has anything to do with it though. Let's try to locate a capacitor for this fan. It must be an aftermarket motor, so it's got to be around here somewhere. Let's see. More wiring. Tied. Yep, it's laying down here in the bottom of the unit, so not very great. Let's unplug this guy. Probably not the best idea to lay a capacitor in the bottom of the AC where all the water can run to it. Looks like it was supposed to originally be a 5. So take our meter here. And we've got no value. There it goes, 19.4, so that's wrong. So I need a new capacitor. So I believe we will try to just route this capacitor and mount it inside here instead of leaving it out exposed to the elements. Probably be a better shot. Always in the habit of checking because can't tell you how many times I've opened the box and it's been the wrong capacitor. And as always, if you're ever going to drill, make sure there's nothing behind here you can hit. because this aftermarket motor has its own capacitor, we don't really care which wire goes to which side of the new one. All right. Clean up some of this wiring over here. Being that our compressor capacitor looks a little aged, we'll go ahead and check that as well while we're here. We're showing 49 on the dot, and this capacitor is well, we can't see it. Well, let's pull it off. Capacitor looks like a 50, so we should be good there. This compressor is very hot to the touch, so they do have an internal overload. This guy is a Reciprocating Compressor. So a little different than the scroll compressors you see more commonly today in the 410A systems. A lot of the R32 systems might even be rotary or swing compressors. This one, our discharge is towards the bottom, and this is our suction side. So these will actually get hot around the bottom, whereas the scroll will get hot on the top. But being that we are so hot, it is probably shut down on a thermal overload. So we'll likely try this, make sure her fan motor works, but we'll give it the benefit of the doubt. Hopefully, once this guy cools down enough, it will start back up, and she should be good to go. Much better. Not a bad little adventure with a package unit. As we pretty much suspected from her description, it was a faulty electrical component. The capacitor was essentially bad. We walked up, noted that the fan was very, very hot to the touch and not operating. We did look for the capacitor in the electrical compartment. However, there wasn't one. We did track it down. It looked like whomever had replaced that fan motor with an aftermarket motor had just decided to mount the capacitor. It looked like they had tried to tape it to that bundle of wire running across, and either the tape gave up or maybe they didn't. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit and they just threw it at the bottom of the unit. But that was on the section with the condenser, so it was exposed to all of our elements, and our capacitor was essentially just laying down there in mud, leaves, and water. Not a good thing. So we did reroute that and mount it back in the electrical compartment as it should be. Always be careful if you're drilling into anything on any of the units inside or out. Make sure you're not drilling into or screwing into rather anything electrical for safety reasons for sure. However, also make sure you're not screwing into an area where a coil goes by, because it's very, very easy to suddenly have a boo-boo and have a cloud coming out of the unit with you. So exciting, but not the best. So we were able to get the fan motor operating again. However, the compressor wasn't starting up. It was very, very hot to the touch, however, and if you can imagine, you have your three windings going into your compressor. You have your common, your run, and your start. So your start's hooked to your capacitor, and your run and your common are both hooked to line and line 2. This particular case, those compressors typically have a overload in them, which is a thermal safety essentially. So as it heats up, and it's on the common line, as it heats up, gets to the point where it's too hot, the heat will actually deform the metal in the little latch, and it'll pop up. and disconnect power. That's there to hopefully save the compressor. They will do that several times. I'm sure you could figure out the materials, figure out how often it's going to actually be able to do it, but eventually if it happens too often they will fail, and you'll just have one that never closes back, essentially. So hopefully that's not the case. Being that motor was very hot to the touch, more than likely it will close back and start working for her. However, it's somewhat akin to taking a can of soda, putting it in a cooler, closing the cooler, and then putting ice around the cooler to try to cool it off. The compressors actually cool themselves with the refrigerant flowing through them as they pump, so it can't pump. It's not really going to cool at that point. You now have a motor that's essentially insulated by refrigerant. It will eventually cool off. You know, it may have started by now after we left. It may take 6 hours. You never really know. You can sometimes take some ice and pack it around the compressor where the motor is. That will sometimes speed up the process. Sometimes I've even taken a water hose and been able to cool it off a little bit if it was a scroll compressor with a motor on top and easy to get to. Just spray the top of it for a while, and sometimes they'll cool off enough to start. Sometimes they won't. In this particular case, we left her with her condenser fan running and her blower motor running, and asked her to give us a call in a few hours, or I'll probably give her a call just to see if it started up. More than likely, she won't have any problems. The capacitor for the compressor, though rusty, was actually where it needed to be target-wise. So she should be good to go theoretically, and we'll move on and try to find something else to play with today.